I now call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. Can I have, let's see, let's go for consideration of claims. How about if I follow the agenda? That might work. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the claims.
Your Honor, make consideration for payment of claims of $271,133.18. Manual checks for $691.90. Elon credit card in the amount of $3,686.46. Payroll and liabilities for May 5th in the amount of $216,400.75 for a total of $491,912.99.
29 cents.
29 cents, excuse me.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any amendments or discussion on the claims?
No, Your Honor, not for me.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Is there anything additional that the committee needs to review or to discuss?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. In that case, the meeting will be adjourned at 6:46.
I call the May 16th, 2023 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Councilmember Borders lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Salisbury give us the invocation?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for having us all here tonight to gather to do the will of the people in Riverton. Thank you for all of our staff, our first responders, our police officers for what they do every day on a daily basis to make sure our city runs to the best of its ability. Thank you for all the people in the community who have reached out to members of the council with problems and solutions to make Riverton a better place to live. We thank you for having such a beautiful community and wonderful people, and you can tell around town that it's just getting better and better. Please be with us as we make decisions tonight, work together, and listen to those that are helping us serve the community. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. All right, would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Peranto.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Cox from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion? She's got a school event. Told me about it a couple weeks ago. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare we do have a quorum present. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Peranto, second by Councilman Bailey. You're on the right side, just the two Bs. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council regarding an item that's scheduled for a public hearing, that's already on the agenda, will be given a chance to speak. If you'd like to speak about something that's not scheduled for a public hearing, you can feel free to come up and tell us your name, organization you're with. If you're an individual, I'd ask that you keep your comments, please, to about 5 minutes. If you're with a group, if you can split it between the other members of your group for 10 minutes, we'd appreciate it. So if you'd like to speak, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Alan Sinner. I'm with the Northern Arapaho Tour Indian Rodeo. I'm not here to ask for money or anything. I'm just here to talk a little bit about it. It's a large event that's happened for 5 years now. It's going to take place June 9th, 10th, and 11th at Fremont County Fairgrounds. I'm pretty proud that I got asked to be part of it with Johnny Friday, and it started with Jim Conrad and Jackie Dorothy, but with the changes, we have some new people, and it's grown to be the second largest rodeo in Wyoming with the number of contestants. We have over 600 people who show up. It's quite an event. We are the fourth largest rodeo in payout. We pay out over $120,000 in prize money. It's quite an event because our contestants are a little bit different than the PRC rodeo committee that I'm also on. They kind of come in and leave after they ride, but our Indian rodeo families, they come and they bring the kids and they bring the families and they stay for 4 or 5 days and visit family, and it's quite an event. And I'm proud to say that people like Western Supply, a couple restaurants in town, and Boot Barn say it's the busiest week of their summer. So that's why I just wanted to come and give you a heads up what's going on. We have over 50 local sponsors, Mr. Bailey being one of our larger sponsors. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. And the other reason I'm here is just to let you know that we'd like to put the flags out like we did last year. We put the Northern Arapaho Tour flag and the tribal flags up along the City Park, and then up to about Daylight Donuts in that area, we have about that many up that way, maybe a little further up towards the overhead door. And we put them up. I've checked with the veterans. There's no conflict with them, and they usually help us, and it's kind of a neat thing. And we'll put a couple American flags up, tour flags, and we'll put them up on probably Tuesday morning and take them down either Sunday or Monday. So I would just like to make sure that's okay. I was given the okay last year and just want to double check.
And what's the date again? You said
9 through the 11th is the rodeo. The rodeo's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We do a thing called slack. We have so many contestants that we have overflow, and we do that during the day on Friday and Saturday, and we run about 1,000 events that are contestants through. Some of them are in several events, so it's, and we have contestants that come from 37 different states, 5 Canadian provinces, and Mexico. They come as far as Florida, New York. It's quite an event.
I don't know. Are there a lot of rodeos down in Florida?
Yes, there actually is.
Oh, I didn't.
There is. Actually, Tallahassee, Florida is a huge PRC rodeo, yes. And they hold the Dodge Circuit Finals down there, and it's probably a $500,000 rodeo. Florida's a big rodeo state.
Now
Actually,
I
it is.
know.
Be surprised Louisiana and Arkansas is too, so. So, yeah, we have a lot of people who come from the Navajo Nation and a lot of Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, yeah.
Your Honor,
Yes.
that rodeo was so much fun last year. I can't believe the stands were not packed. Like,
Yes.
I mean, even just looking at the horses that they bring in, it was a blast. We really need to get the word out because it was so much fun.
It's been a struggle. I don't know what it is, but we get them about 3/4 full, and it should be because we are.
It should be packed.
It should be. It is a good rodeo. We have no problem filling up with bull riders and bareback riders and saddle bronc riders, and the cool thing is a lot of people don't know. Christy knows because she has native blood in her. But a lot of the NFR, about 1/4 of the NFR are members of the Indian Tour Rodeo. So we get a lot of the top 15 hands down here.
Plus, the grand entry was wild.
Yeah, it's
It was
pretty
almost
cool.
more fun
Yeah.
than some of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
they were
somebody says. Yeah. So hopefully it'll keep growing. It gets grow. We had a good thing going, and then of course 2020 hit. I am proud to say that the second year we had the stands pretty much full, but then 2020 hit, and we're starting over again. I mean, we've had 3 rodeos. So hopefully this will be it. So.
Well, I haven't gone before. I should go.
Okay.
And on Councilwoman Salisbury's recommendation.
Maybe I'll just be nice and bring you some complimentary tickets if you come have coffee with us. Okay? So there, that's it. Okay with the flags, probably?
I think so.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with flags?
I'll probably call the state too, since they told me to call you guys, but I'll just let them know what we're doing. Okay?
They told you to call us. I think you're probably good.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Anybody? Oh, okay. Oh, no. I thought Mr. Baxter was coming up. He's going the other direction. All right. We'll move on. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, May 2nd, 2023, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, May 9th, 2023, council work session. Approval of the minutes, May 16th, 2023, finance committee meeting. Approval of the finance committee recommendations for May 16th, 2023. Approval of the municipal court report for the month of April 2023, and an open container permit application submitted by Riverton Lions Club for their annual picnic at Sunset Park on June 12, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any other items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
the Finance Committee met earlier this evening and agreed to consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $271,133.18, a manual check in the amount of $691.90, the Elon credit card in the amount of $3,686.46, payroll and liabilities for 5/5/2023 in the amount of $216,400.75, for a total of $491,912.29.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Councilman Paranto with the motion, Councilman Bailey with the second. Discussion or amendments?
Your Honor, I'd like to abstain from any warrants paid to Traveling Computers or Wyonet.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes. All right, Public Works Week proclamation. This should we should proclaim May as Proclamation Month, because we've got a lot of proclamations. But this is a really good one. Public Works Week is going to be May 21st through the 27th this year. So we have a proclamation about that. Of course, we in Riverton are blessed to have a very active, busy, is that a blessing that they're active and busy? I don't know, but.
I'm glad they're busy.
Yeah, we have a very active, busy Public Works Department, and I appreciate their hard work, and I think it's very appropriate to have a week to recognize them. So, proclamation is as follows. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Riverton, Wyoming. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Riverton, Wyoming to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest in understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Week Association, be it now resolved, I, Tim Hancock, Mayor of the City of Riverton, do hereby designate the week of May 21st through 27th, 2023, as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies and activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Riverton be affixed, done in Riverton, Wyoming, this 16th day of May, 2023. All right, well, we'll make sure you have a copy of this, Brian.
Thank you.
It's your week. What does that mean? I mean, as the Public Works Director, do you get to have any perks of?
It just means I work harder.
Okay, well, fair enough. Well, I appreciate all that our Public Works Department does. We have great employees there who are, and man, they've had a busy winter, especially, so I appreciate them. All right, next up on the agenda, continuing with Proclamation Month, we have a proclamation of the Daughters of the American Revolution Day. And Lynette, do you want to come and tell us a little bit about your organization since you're here? I should have probably had Brian talk about Public Works on the spot.
The Daughters of the American Revolution is an organization of women, about 190,000 women in the entire country, all 50 states, many foreign countries. We can all trace lineage to those that served in the American Revolution. I have 5 ancestors traced back, one of whom did not bear arms, was a Quaker, and was served in the Pennsylvania legislature, and that serves as patriotic service. The Wyoming State Society is meeting in Riverton starting Friday through basically Sunday morning with 60-some ladies, plus visitors from Nebraska, Vermont, Colorado, Washington, D.C., and Montana. So we have quite a representation. It's a fairly small chapter locally. There are about 35 people locally. And we try and promote education, patriotic service, veterans issues, and such.
Well, sounds good. I tried to get one of our female council members to come and bring the proclamation to the meeting. I think you were wanting to have this on the Saturday
Correct.
part of the meeting. What time?
Noontime.
Okay, because I got a volunteer who is not of the female persuasion, who was willing to bring that instead. Councilman Bailey, our council president, agreed, I think. I'm putting him on the spot to make sure for sure he's going to be there now.
Would you like to have lunch with us?
I would enjoy that very much.
All right, I will put you on the listing for a lunch.
Okay.
And the state regent, Lori White, will be the presiding officer at that function.
So he'll bring that, and he'll read the proclamation there for your group there. And I will say I had the opportunity to meet some folks from the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Casper chapter.
Okay, the Fort Casper.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was,
That's the one.
is it?
There, yeah.
Well, they came, so we just had last week a group of citizens who swore in as citizens, who are naturalized citizens, last week, and believe it or not, we had a group of Daughters of the American Revolution who were there to present each of them with a packet and a pin and just different stuff like that to welcome them as new citizens, and I just thought that was awesome, so.
I had done that when I lived in Kansas City, and they had naturalization teas, and we would be there to give gifts to the new citizens.
Yeah, it was good, and we had veterans organizations and everything. It was just great. I'll talk about it more during the roundtable, but thank you for letting us know what you do and about your meeting this weekend, and I'll just read this proclamation
Right.
then. Thank you.
Your Honor. So where is that meeting going to be at?
At the Wind River Hotel,
Okay,
in the Blue Sky Room.
all right.
You could have just driven around town and tell.
You never know.
I've done that before. We just had a prime rib dinner for the senior center, and it didn't say where it was going to be, and I was like, well, I'll start at the Senior Citizens Center, and then I'll wander around until I find
See
it.
if anybody's hanging out. Yeah.
Luckily, it was there. All right, this is the proclamation. Whereas the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution is a nonprofit historical society owned by women and located in Washington, D.C., incorporated in 1896 by an act of Congress. And whereas the National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, has 190,000 members and 3,000 chapters in all 50 states and several foreign countries. And whereas the Daughters of the American Revolution honor their heritage by making a difference in their communities across the country and the world through historical preservation, promotion of education, and encouragement of patriotic endeavors. Whereas any woman 18 years or older, regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background, who can prove lineal descent from a patriot of the American Revolution is eligible for membership. And whereas the Wyoming State Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, will convene its annual conference in Riverton, Wyoming at the Wind River Hotel and Casino, May 18th through 20th, 2023. And whereas the Wyoming Society, NSDAR, consists of 10 local chapters throughout the state, represented locally by the Fremont chapter. Now therefore I, Timothy Hancock, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Riverton, do hereby recognize the work of the Wyoming State Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, and hereby proclaim May 20th, 2023 as Daughters of the American Revolution Day in Riverton, Wyoming, and in recognition of that day, encourage our citizens in their efforts towards research of their heritage, preservation of our history, promotion of education, and encouragement of patriotic endeavors. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Riverton to be affixed this 16th day of 2023. Well, it's not the 16th day of 2023, but it's the 16th day of May, in the year of our Lord 2023. Tim Hancock, Mayor. Can you be trusted with this, Mike?
Do my best.
All right, he's got it. So if it gets lost, I'll give you his cell phone. You can call him and chew him out, not me. Thank you. All right, moving on. Wind River Visitors Council budget. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the 2nd of this month, the Visitor Council came and presented to you and provided information on their budget. That was also distributed to you via email. The council wanted to take a little bit more time to review the budget proposal. Ms. Helen Wilson is in the audience to answer any questions that you have, and I do want to recognize also that you have your 2 Riverton representatives from that council and board here as well tonight.
Thank you. And I see we do have Hal here and we have Julie here, two board members. So thank you for attending, and Helen, thank you for being here. So in order to get started, I guess if we're going to have discussion on it, I would entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Wind River Visitors Council.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, second with Councilwoman Borders. And discussion. You could just tell us whatever you want to tell us, Helen, or we can have some discussion up here.
I'm happy to start. Can I hand something out really quick?
Sure.
We have new lodging tax numbers, so I wanted to bring them.
Great.
We've got 2 more months than what you previously had in here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Okay. The other thing that I brought with me today, we've been going through a lot of the budget hearings. Last week, the budget was approved in both Du Bois and Lander, and there's been a lot of questions about can we see minutes, can we see reports, can we see this, and can we see that? So I did actually put together a document, which I have here on a thumb drive. It's 423 pages, which is why I decided not to print it up for everybody, but I do have it here for the city to have for your records, or for, a casual evening where you've got nothing else to do and you want to look at Wind River Visitors Council things. It also includes the audits in there, which we had an audit this year, and in the past we've had financial reviews. I did get your questions, and I am happy to go through them or just answer any questions people have. I realize that part of what you sent me is the question document that came from Du Bois, and the answer to a lot of those questions is actually the same. We have a higher budget this year, so we're able to spend more under different budget lines. There's also been a lot of questions about what the money can be spent on, and I do just want to read something from the state statute. Expenditures for travel and tourism promotion shall be limited to promotional materials, television and radio advertising, printed advertising, digital content, social media, promotion of tours, staging of events, educational materials, and other specific tourism-related objectives, provided that none of these funds shall be spent for capital construction or improvements. And that's from the state statute. Sometimes we get a question, and I love it when we get questions about, can we spend the money on this? And I'm not sure about the answer, or I just want to confirm. So we're in communication with the Wyoming Office of Tourism at least once a week, just asking questions to make sure that the money is being spent properly. I know that there's questions about what can it be spent on besides marketing, but that really is its purpose. The Destination Development Program, however, can be spent on other things, which is why we're looking at signage and we're looking at art banner expansion, because a big part of that was beautification. So I think that addresses a couple of the questions. As far as the TAD program is a very unique program. It was created by the Wind River Visitors Council, and nobody else in the state does it. And when I talked to the state about this, they were actually surprised that we have they thought it was 10% that we do, and we're the only people that do it. We do 25%. I did bring the list of projects that was on the that was given to me by the Riverton Chamber of Commerce a few months ago for where they spent the money. So this might answer some of the questions about where it's been spent locally, which the Riverton Chamber of Commerce decides. But the Riverton Youth Soccer Association, $13,000. The City of Riverton, Riverton Rendezvous, $9,676.13. The Riverton Ambassadors Video, $10,000. The 1838 Rendezvous Association, $6,059.45. The Rendezvous Beef Roundup, $3,000. The Riverton Legion Raiders, $4,500. The Rocky Mountain Rebels Summer Show, $3,321.41. The Riverton Mineral and Gem Society, $2,000. The Riverton Heritage Festival, $2,291.12. And in addition to that, the Wind River Visitors Council often looks at projects, and I just lost my sheet, which has our list of Riverton projects, but we have done various video projects, the signage. We're helping with an event through it's a grand opening next week for the Heritage Center, so we're helping out with that, creating ads, sending out press releases, all of that. So, but technically, the TAD money is specifically for just Riverton, and that's where that money goes. And now I've lost my sheet of questions. So, and as far as the international, somebody had asked if it's possible to increase the international marketing budget. We have increased it for this year. It's gone up pretty significantly, and I've been watching travel trends around the world, and it looks like people are happier to travel internationally now. But we've moved our international marketing budget from $10,750 to $19,850. We'll also be attending IRU, which is the international conference, and this year it's in Casper. And I haven't been to it before, but I've been told it's kind of like speed dating for tourism, where you have 10 minutes with one person, 10 minutes with another person, and everybody shifts around. So I've already started conversations on how best to prepare for this, and we'll be marketing tours in our area, and especially in Riverton, because it's great hotels, great restaurants. It's a great place for buses to come through. I can keep reading questions.
You're doing great, Helen. I appreciate it.
Well, and we did have, the list of questions from Du Bois. I think that a lot of them are answered in that 14-page packet that I gave you. But one point that I'd really like to make is we are 100% transparent, and that's why I brought this thumb drive of every single thing that we've had in the last 2 years. And it's all organized, so you can find minutes, you can find agendas, you can find newsletters, financial reports, the whole thing. So we want to make sure that we want to work really well with all of our communities, and that's something that I've really strived for. If you have questions, please ask. If anybody in the community has questions, anybody can call my cell phone. We really want this to be a community effort. This is community money, and we want the community involved, as well as the city councils, obviously. So, was there anything really specific that anybody wanted to ask me? Yes.
Councilman Larson had a question.
Line 52, new opportunities,
Yep.
$56,740. What opportunities have we discovered for that?
Well, we will discover them. A lot of that is state co-ops. So what happens is in the spring and the fall, the state will release some kind of marketing campaign where they pay half and then we pay the other half. And so we don't actually know what those are yet. I'm really excited because our new opportunities fund is very high, which means that when there's projects that come up in the community that benefit the whole county, as well as state co-ops, these are things that would qualify for that funding. But the new opportunities is things that we don't know about yet. That and I'll give an example. The state was organizing an itinerary through a magazine. Through the state, and they were saying to partners, who can participate in this? And that would be something that we hadn't budgeted for, so that would come directly from the New Opportunities Fund. But it's not something, and I'm aware that some organizations, including the chambers, have a new opportunities grant, and it's not really a grant, it's more of, these are projects that could come up that we just don't know about yet.
So we've got the tourism feasibility study that we're hoping we'll get some more information for, and would that be some of what?
It depends what it is, because the new one, it would have to be spent on marketing. So we couldn't build a bathroom, things like that. But it really depends what that's, and that's why, it's new opportunities. And I was just putting the slideshow together today for my marketing plan, and the new opportunities has question marks floating everywhere. So there's not really a clear answer for it, but a lot of it is saving the money for state co-ops that are, we put in a part, and then the state really goes crazy with it. So it's really a positive thing for us to do.
Have you, and I guess, because it's a little bit of a different experience in the past where you've had to be audited now, which is great. I mean, we've been able to get to a point where we've passed that threshold. And it looks like, it seems like we're going to get past that again this year as well.
We have, because the $300,000 destination development money, so we're already in audit land.
Okay. So then, I guess in terms of that method of budgeting, and I'm just wanting to make sure that we're okay in terms of by the auditors. Do they consider that just basically a saving is pretty much what they would consider that for new opportunities, or what?
I believe so. And, we did our first audit last year, and I had questions on every single line item. And the process took from the beginning of October until the end of December. And we just answered everything honestly. And we asked questions because, we hadn't done it before. And it's like, are we supposed to do it this way? And what we found out was we just had such a positive audit. It was the word he used was unheard of, how clean the audit was for a first-year audit. And there were just 2 items, and neither were our fault.
And then, but did you have something that was a line item like new opportunities?
We did. This has been a line item for a very long time.
Good.
So yes.
Is that different than the destination?
The destination development program is completely separate, and
That allows for capital funding?
yes, it's for destination development, beautification projects. It is $300,000, so it wouldn't get very far in building a welcome center or anything like that.
Would that be allowable for a match for a different program to use that kind of funding? And is that a line item on this budget?
I am not sure. The rules with it, we're not allowed to sub-grant it. I know we're not allowed to give money to other, there is a list of rules. I'm not sure if it can be used as a match, but that's definitely something that I will ask the Wyoming Office of Tourism.
And is that also is that a line item, that $300,000?
The $300,000 is, and so what we did is, if you look at the budget, it's the section at the bottom. And because the timing on it was strange, we have 18 months to spend it. So we got the money in January, but we have until June 2024. So the expenditures are on the bottom of the budget here. So you can see what we've budgeted it for. And that was the recommendation of the accountant, because I wasn't sure how to put it on the budget.
Go ahead, Councilman Paranto.
I really appreciate the transparency and accountability, and I went back through the packet that you gave us at the last meeting, yesterday actually, and I did see that a lot of those questions were answered. But a question that I have was, what happens to the unspent funds? Do they carry over, or?
That's a great question, and the way that we do our budget is we use the full previous fiscal year's revenue as our budget for the following year. So the money that, and I'm just going to have to look at my chart here, they do carry over, but what we're looking, what we used to do was we used to guess, and we used to try to project, and sometimes we were low, sometimes we were high, and it was it was challenging for the Wind River Visitors Council, but it was also challenging for the people that received the TAD money because they never knew how much they were going to get. So we started using the full previous fiscal year because we were able to get ahead during COVID because we were having such record-breaking revenue. And what we did was we stuck to our budget. So we estimated we were going to come in low, we had extra money, and we were able to switch to this system, which is the system that Paula McCormick, who had my position before me, really wanted to switch to for a long time, but never had the opportunity. So by sticking to our budget, we were able to do that, but the money does carry over. So this is the second column here, the full one. That's the budget for the following year, and then when this column fills up, that'll be for the year after. It's a unique way of doing the budget, but it's worked really well for Cody. They use this system, and it's something that last year we got a lot of questions about because we switched over last year, and there was a lot of questions and I think a lot of uncertainty, but it's worked out incredibly well this year. But yes, any money that's left at the end of the year goes over. But I really like doing budgets, and as far as our budget this year, we're right on track for spending just about every penny. It's a talent. So we like to spend every penny, not go over, and not be under.
Great, thank you.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
So I think part of the problem with Riverton and the whole thing is we don't have as many probably natural tourist assets. And then we've looked at some of the past documents and stuff, and I'm wondering there's no statute and you're the only one that does 25% with TAD money, but is there any discussion within your board or anything that could be increased? Where we could, because Riverton's problem is we want to develop things, assets, programs, events, and then there's something for you to market here. Like, you guys are great marketing the little things, but we want to develop our assets so we can have a big event and we have money to do it, and then it can be advertised, because right now we have the events, which are fine, that we're doing with a small amount of TAD, but we want to have things that are like yearly events, whether it's a New Year's Eve or this or that. And there's really nothing I saw in any of the bylaws or anything that said it had to be at 25%, or even when we come over, like we moved it into different places where we really need asset development, where Lander, Du Bois probably have more assets than tourists and they know what to do with. Riverton wants to be more of a place where you come, rendezvous city, stay here, we'll take you out, do this kind of stuff. So that's what we're looking at. How can we work with you and the board, and I'll ask our board members to come up and speak to that. So that's what that's
Yep.
the big picture is of the whole thing.
And that's a great big picture. And the TAD itself isn't in the state statute. As I mentioned, it's a Wind River Visitors Council program. We would really struggle for increasing one communities and not increasing the others, and 25%, the state thought it was really high. But what
I don't mean just for our community, but I'm thinking as communities as a whole, if that could be, there's nothing that says, we've always done it where it's more marketing and stuff, but to me, if we don't build things to market, spending all this money on marketing isn't
Yep.
doing what we need.
And I hear that, and I think the one thing that we could do is I would be very thrilled to sit down with the people who are interested in marketing Riverton, the people who are working with the TAD money, helping develop a plan, helping come up with ideas. I think that a lot of it, the Wind River Visitors Council, we look at numbers every day. We look at stats. We follow all of that, and I think that that we can help provide guidance as to where that money can be spent, which would best benefit Riverton. When I am promoting Riverton to groups, what I'm initially doing is saying, this is where you want to stay, this is where you want to eat, this is where you can go shopping downtown. There's lots of different tours, but you also have some really good gems. The Castle Gardens is one of them. Really big there. I think I would love to see the 1838 rendezvous site get built up so that it could be recognized as a historical place and have it be a destination as opposed to just somewhere that people might fall upon. I think that moving the Riverton Chamber into the Wind River Heritage Center was a great idea. I think with, revamping the place, making it look really nice, making it really welcoming. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So I don't think that it's necessarily that there's not enough money. I think that maybe the money just needs to be directed a little bit differently. And I'm happy to provide ideas. I'm happy to sit down with whoever to help with that process. But I think all of our communities, and when I market our county as a whole, I market the diversity in each community. We've had people come in to do studies of what's the one tourism asset in this county or Wind River country, which includes the reservation as well. And what we have that's really marketable is the diversity. Spend a day here, spend a day there, spend a day there. One conversation that I had earlier today that I'm really excited about is that the Wyoming Office of Tourism has developed an app. It's a travel app. I think it just got released on May 1st, and they have asked me to work on itineraries. And I said, and they initially said one of your county, and I said, well, can we do one of each of our communities, as in Du Bois, Lander, Riverton, and the Wind River Indian Reservation, and then do one big one that's the whole thing. And they have agreed to let us do that. So that's something that we can put together, is an itinerary specifically for Riverton that features the museums and, even the high mountain seasoning. That is such a fun tour to go on if you haven't been on it. It is a really neat tour, and with local foods, and local foods really do fall under tourism nowadays. And to have a tour like that where people can shop, buy local products, I mean, there's a lot that can be done, and it's almost too big, and that's why it's nice to have a group of people who want to really focus on how can we really market Riverton to what Riverton is, and then expand on that.
Well, even if you look at the soccer tournament that brought in more people, we need to have more sporting events where we are central.
Yep.
Should hear, that's what I'm thinking there. I don't know, adding more marketing when we have over versus more assets when that, as a board, maybe Hal or Julie could come speak to what you guys are promoting for us. Because the last thing, and I'll let other people talk, is communication. Like, are we meeting with our reps so we can let them know what we would like as a board, and what are they promoting, and what kind of say do they have and stuff? Because it looks like there could be some changes within your board and stuff to address some of these things. So maybe if Julie or Hal have anything to say. I'm not just putting you on the spot, but
Yeah.
But the communication, we need to be communicating to them. They need to be communicating to you. I think that needs to improve on our part, and to make sure that we're all on the same page or getting the information. So it's not just budgeting meeting. Here we are.
Yep.
And then feel like you're on the spot. Like, what kind of input are we having prior to that? And what kind of things are we promoting for Riverton and the county?
Yep, and I'm just going to add a couple of things to that. Hal Herron's been actively working on expanding the art banner project, and that is something that people ask about, and it's something people can go and they can walk from place to place. I'd also like to expand by having more travel stories audio tours, so that when people show up at their hotel, they've been driving all day, they're tired, but the kids are kind of crazy and they want to get the kids out, to have an audio tour that's free where they can walk around and look at historical places and, go for a walk, but have it actually have more of a purpose than just walking. As far as the TAD money this year, the current fiscal year was $64,743. This upcoming fiscal year is $81,837. So there is additional money there. There's also the Destination Development Program projects, and this might be, and I have to really stress might, but the Wyoming Office of Tourism is looking at continuing it into future years. So if there's a plan for that money, then when it starts on July 1st, 2024, and we say to the Riverton representatives, what do we want to do? And they've already got the list. That makes it a lot easier, because we had less than a month to actually apply for this money, and they wanted the spending plan with the application. So,
That's what I'm saying. We need to make sure we're meeting with our reps and saying, we want to do this, and so it's in time, like.
yep.
Because
And
it's our fault too, that we're not communicating maybe to you guys and to our reps to communicate to the board too.
And I'm happy to meet with people. I know that the reps are happy to meet with people. So I think that a lot of this is just figuring out what Riverton wants, what the Wind to River Visitors Council can do. I'm keeping an eye on grant opportunities. I've got a seminar, so I've got something tomorrow that addresses grant opportunities, and I'm going to see if there's anything that might qualify. There's also the ARPA funding, which I've been meeting with people all around the county about, which will provide some really great opportunities. And they haven't released that grant yet, but it could be as low as $10,000 and as high as $999,000. And that would be money that can go toward outdoor recreation projects. So that's trails, that's, the Heritage Trail. If we could get a bike trail that runs from Riverton to Shoshone, that would be amazing. I think people would go biking, they'd go running, they'd go dog walking, and there's opportunities like that. But we are keeping an eye on the grant opportunities, and I try to, whenever anybody contacts me about grants, they get added to my whiteboard under a category, and then I get in contact with people when opportunities come up.
Well, that'd be good with the destination, because I know Du Bois didn't want the destination, and I think if we know we have some time to put together some things we'd like, because we want people coming here, so we
Yeah.
don't care who they are.
And I want people coming here too, and I think that that Riverton does have a lot to offer, and we do promote that. And we do want to build up your tourism assets and help in any way that we can. So please stay in touch. I mean, with myself or with the representatives, but we always respond to people, always.
Councilman Bailey, I think you were,
Sorry.
no, it's okay.
I even still remember what I was gonna ask, so.
Well, good, that's impressive.
I guess a couple of things. One of them, of course, is you've raised salaries. And I guess my concern, after just going through a lot of the budget stuff here at the city of Riverton, I mean, we're really struggling to increase our wage scale by much at all. And so what was your justification for increasing your wages? And I guess it sort of leans into my second question, which is, so we went from a $700 and something thousand budget, 729, to $1,016,000. And it looks like this year's gonna fall in maybe a smidge under that, but pretty close. But our concern always is, this is sort of an anomaly where it goes from 700 to $1 million. Well, if it falls back to 700, are you gonna be able to afford to keep the budget where it's at? Because you're gonna have to figure out where to cut $300,000 if it goes back to the average, because I mean, it ran there along at 700 and something thousand for many, many years.
Yep.
And so that's just concerning to us, is that wages is one of those things you can't really pull back on.
Yep, and with the salary, what we have a salary committee and actually Hal Heron is the head of it. But what we do is we've got, and I think it's in small print next to it. We have budgeted for a salary increase and/or bonuses up to 10%. So we'll be going through the usual process of self-evaluations and supervisor evaluations and goals and looking at all of that. And this is something that's been in the works with the board of coming up with a bonus plan, looking at the salary. But what we did in this budget was wrote in up to 10%.
Okay.
So that's not
Analyzed.
a set number. It's just up to 10% for both. Oh,
If I might,
I think that, yes, Mr. Heron, you would probably be the best person to ask about this. So could you address it, please?
Mr. Mayor, my pleasure. Councilmen, council ladies, may I start with my esteemed colleague, Julie Buller, is really energetic, and she's got her pulse on every project that's going on in this town, I will guarantee you. And is such a great asset to represent us on the Visitor Council Board. But what you bring up, having said that, is it's a real philosophical issue, isn't it? I've been here for quite some time. What you just asked has been going through people's minds 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You know, one person could express the opinion, build it and they will come. The military museum. But boy, that was a lot of money. And I am of the mindset that you are, over the course of years being on various boards, my mindset was, let's do something big. Let's don't piddle it off here, here, here. Let's not necessarily roll the dice, but let's go something big. This is not an original idea, but the world's largest teepee. Let's put it up at the college or up, I don't know. I'll bet people will come. I wish I could say that was my idea because it's so simple. But, you know, the world's, you know, biggest string, bowl of string or something, you know, it's just wild what people will do. And what will retain them in a community for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. So your question is well put. I wish I had the answer. I think to a certain extent money. But I don't know that going from 25% TAD money to 50 would even cut a big idea type situation, eh? And so I digress. To answer your question, Mr. Bailey, let me give you some context. So a number of years ago, maybe a year and a half, I don't know, it was before I got on the board, but not very far and prior to me joining the board, is that the Wind River Visitors Council was basically run by Paula McCormick and a consultancy firm. So everything ran through the consultancy firm. And so the monies that came in from the state as a result of the hotel, you know, taxes and so forth, and then got sent back, it was distributed and marketed by her. Prior to me coming on board, the decision was made by the Visitor Council Board, why don't we have our own employees? Why don't we have our own staff? And so maybe what we can do is save some money on, when you place an ad traditionally, going back to my Brunton days, when you place an ad in Field and Stream, you had to pay an agency fee. And Paula McCormick did. And so we've been able to save those agency fees because we're doing it ourselves. And I could go on and on how bringing things internally has saved our money and put it to more prudent use. And, you know, some people might say, well, gosh, I wish you would have spent it here. I wish you would have spent it there. But that's what Julie and I do. We're here to represent what you guys want to do. And also, because we get the context of the whole board. So Du Bois representatives or county representatives, they may have a different approach or idea about what we should do to foster tourism in this wonderful county called Fremont. Specifically, so now I'm involved, I'm on the executive committee, so now I get sucked into the finance committee, now I'm sucked into the personnel committee. And so the issue came up about wages. Specifically for Miss Ellen here. So I thought, man, I don't know anything about it. So I'll try to shorten this. So what I did is I put together an anonymous questionnaire, and I sent it out to the Visitor Council, our sister organizations. They go by tiers, A tier, you know, like Teton County, B, C, whatever. We're in B. So I sent this questionnaire out. I called everybody ahead of time, her equivalent in these other counties. And I sent out these questionnaires. I think sample size was 9, something like that. And I got 6 back. And I agreed to let everybody remain anonymous. And I'm going to honor that. So Natrona County sent one back, you know, blah, blah, blah. The questionnaire was quite extensive. What are your benefits? In fact, what are your vacation days? How do you qualify for pregnant? You know, all these different things. And to cut to the chase, once I looked at that and I looked at revenues versus what they're paying their executive directors, we were underpaying our executive director quite a bit. And so now it comes around, so you're asking about the bonus. Because of that, we started saying, this is a very competitive market for tourism. You see what Governor Gordon wants to do with this state, and he wants it to be tourism, a big part of it. Cold revenues, severance taxes are declining, and so forth. So tourism is a big push. That's why I personally believe we're going to start getting more of these destination development funds, which is wonderful for our county and our city. But in reviewing and talking to these people personally, that's why we put in there a 10% bonus up to, because it's everybody's looking for tourism people like Helen. I'll give you a case in point. I don't think this person would mind. So there was a lady running the Casper, the Natrona County equivalent. And I was talking to her, and she was giving me some really good, she said, God, your questions are spot on. Please ask them all, because I'm leaving in a week. I said, well, geez. Everybody around state says this gal walks on water. Well, she was leaving to go to South Dakota, some city in South Dakota. They were losing her. Why? Because she was going to get paid, multiples of 10,000s more. And anyway, it's a hot position. Now, is Helen doing an excellent job? I think so. So I don't want to lose Helen. Let's just put it that way, okay? And I think what we represented to our budget committee prior to going to the personnel committee, prior to coming, manifesting in a budget that we're now sharing with you, is that we agreed that we think we need to pay a fair wage. It's a competitive market. So sorry to be so long, but I hope that gives you some context about, I had this same discussion up in Du Bois, and they asked the same question. And I'm just telling you the truth, because I went through a lot of data to manifest in that line item in the budget. So
The point is, I think that's important with it, is that this wasn't just a number that you were just kind of throwing out. This is based on objective.
Oh, yes.
You're talking to people, you're trying to
Wasn't
figure out what
emotional.
makes sense. Yes. So we're trying, at least in this budget, you're saying, we want to have this as a possibility for the board to approve.
Yes, sir.
Based on criteria that they would determine.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. And I think it'd be good to have that, being able to figure that criteria out first, right? Which is, I think, part of what you're talking about, is the board would get together, decide criteria, say,
Absolutely.
in terms of what we're looking at for criteria, this is how that's been met, and this is what we think is the appropriate increase, if one is appropriate.
That's correct.
And I really appreciate you stepping up, Hal, because it's an awkward question for Helen.
Can I ask Hal one
know.
more question?
Go for it.
How do you think it's best to get input from this council to you for
I've
what?
got a PO box, and you could just send a letter, and then,
But I mean, I think.
I'll give you my.
You can have 2 or 3, but you'll have enough do you want to do it open forum like this? Do you want
Oh, I
a
don't
meeting with you guys? Because I've been on the council for a couple of years, and I don't think have you guys?
The important-
Other than
Other half
putting,
is
you guys you've been on the board for 40 years, Kyle. How do you give them input?
Is it 40 or is it?
Well, we've never had the board come back and talk to us. We've
That's why I
been
think
once
we
a
need
year
to.
and a surprise, and we've held them hostage for
It's
a
not their
month.
fault, it's our fault for not, how are we communicating to you?
Well, and I really appreciate Helen. I spoke to her soon after taking office, and one of the things that she was talking about is, what can we do? Because, and this is, it's an important discussion, because the thing is, and I was just telling this to Mr. Butterfield the other day, ultimately, the way that this money is spent, the connection that the citizens have to it is through us. We are the ones that ultimately are answering to the citizens in terms of how this is spent. So we're the ones that are responsible for it. The governing bodies are. You serve, of course, as our appointees on the board, and then from there it goes to Helen, who's the executive director. But the responsibility to the voters is for us. And so I think Councilwoman Salisbury's question is very appropriate. If that's the case, which it is, then how can we make sure that we know what's going on so that we can answer to the citizens? And so I think one of the things that we discussed, and I think Helen expressed being very willing to do it, would be the quarterly report that we're supposed to be doing, which has not been, and I don't blame, this was not meant to be anything of a blame, but it's like, if we're not specifically saying, hey, this is what we would like from the Wind River Visitors Council, how are they supposed to know? You're not mind readers, for goodness sakes. And so I think,
And to our reps.
right. And
They know what to take before us.
by the way, Julie does very well at attending she's been at almost the same amount of council meetings I have for the
Probably
last
more.
couple of months. And so really appreciate that. And Hal, I know you're always very willing, very able, and I've appreciated your time on the board. So I guess the point would be, if there's something that we want to do in that regard, then let's talk about that. And I think that's a very good point. You know, if we're going to, what do we want those quarterly reports to look like? Do we want it to be Hal and Julie who are here, Hal and Julie and Helen? And I think those are good questions to be asking and making sure that we've got that communication. So,
I agree.
were you wanting to say something?
Well, Christie wanted me to get up, or was wanting me to come speak. I agree, the joint powers, that's kind of what we've been pushing for, is we need the joint powers behind us, and I think that's starting to become the message that's going out to all of the communities around here, because we go into those meetings and we don't know. I mean, I've been asking myself since I've been on the board, what is it that we're going to market for Riverton? Because just like Christie said, what is our tourism asset? And I've gotten frustrated because it's like, well, we don't really have anything in my mind to market that falls under tourism per se, the way we've known it. But when you start thinking about, okay, what is it we have here at the Rendezvous City? We should be promoting the events and the sports and those types of things. And if we were focused on more of that, that would help Riverton more so than, you know, promoting those normal tourist type deals. And I do agree with the asset development. I mean, I wish we could spend less on marketing and more on asset development, because that is the message that does come down from the state, that asset development is what we need to be focusing on. I mean, we're already marketing it, and we're already hearing from some of these other communities that they're over flooded in our county with the tourists, but we keep saying we're not here. So like, that keeps taking me back to what can we develop here? And those are some of the conversations I think we need to have. What is, I mean, the sports people are jumping up and down. There's all kinds of money there, all kinds of events. We just heard with the rodeo. I mean, we could be supporting all of those types of things that would bring people specifically to Riverton. When I was on the Riverton Realtors of the Chambers, that was their kind of ambassadors. I was really young then in my volunteer years, and I don't even remember how we did it, but we went out to other cities around the town to draw in those conventions, get them to come here. So that's something that I think if we tried to focus a little bit more on with the Winter Visitors Council money, is how do we go out there and promote those types of events and conventions to come here? I think that's what we need to try to do with some of that marketing money. And like I said, you know, our budget keeps increasing for marketing. Let's maybe keep it at, it's working where it's at. Let's maybe take some more of that and use it for asset development. That's just my 2 cents worth. But I think Hal and I would meet with you anytime. I know my pulse is on the community and what they want, and it is sports, conventions, you know, the events. That's what we have to offer here. So we appreciate you guys' help giving us that input and sitting down with us and directing us when we go back to the Wind River Visitors Council. Thank you.
And I guess that then, in terms of how we want to do that, what do we want to have, I guess, quarterly contacts look like from the?
Well, I think we need to make sure with the destination stuff that Helen was talking about, we need to get a plan together. So, I mean, do we set up meetings where there's all of us here, or do you guys ever, do you want, I mean, we have to.
Well, there's already a plan that she had to submit for the destination development funds.
I'm
And so
talking
that's
about
been
for next
submitted.
year.
Right, well, and that's if we get those funds next year. This is currently, right now, a one-time thing. Now, I've spoken, my understanding is that I had gotten an email from you, Helen, that you were like, this is the plan, but we're not married to it. If there's something that comes from the, you know, tourism feasibility study that's going to be different, that we might want to change our direction a little bit, we're trying to be agile and be willing to kind of adjust as we need to. And so I think we had to have a plan in order to get it, but I think that's part of the whole point of the new opportunities too, is to be able to be agile with that. So. All right, well, is there any other discussion on the budget? All right, Kip, and I was talking about representatives, and these are ours, nothing against you, you're the county one, but you're definitely welcome to come up, Mr. Post.
Thanks, Kip Post. I'm on the Wind River Visitors Council Board as well, but I'm the county representative. So my job is to try to focus on the things that are county-wide, where Julie and Helen are more focused on the Riverton-wide stuff. I think that it's definitely a benefit. We haven't, I don't think Hal or Julie, or myself has necessarily got a lot of direction. I know I haven't from the county that says, okay, we want you to go to the Wind River Visitors Council and this is what we want you to vote for. It's just support the county. Okay, that's well and good, but if you have something, it'd be nice to have a little bit more of that. I think as representatives, to have some of that ahead of time so that we know this is something Riverton really wants or this is something the county really wants, then that's what we need to vote for 3 months ago, not tonight when we're trying to get the budget approved. The other thing is as you know, the Joint Powers Board created the Wind River Visitors Council. It's very vague. All it really says is that it created it, the budget has to be approved unanimously, they're supposed to give reports once a quarter. That's it. There's really not much more to it. I would love to see that, if there's concerns with how the funds are allocated, then the Joint Powers Board can change that. The Joint Powers Board can get together and say, okay, we want 32.4% of the funds to go to TAD. We want 25%, we want 50%, we want 75%. Doesn't matter what that number is, but the Joint Powers Board is the one that can control that at that level if that's what they want to do. They just have chosen not to do that, which is fine, but that leaves the Visitors Council up with pulling out of thin air, really, where that number comes from. And we all vote on it and agree to it, and the budget's passed, and that's how it happens. But it was just my 2 cents anyway. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Mr. Post.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
Do you have like annual benchmarks that can occur or that do occur before you make decisions on how these funds are allocated, things of that nature that we need to be a part of or at least aware of before they occur?
As far as marketing spending?
As far as anything. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about as a joint powers board, I mean, you guys need to have some input, so
Right.
we should probably know when that input is most effectual
Yeah. When it's
beforehand as opposed to post.
Post afterwards. We started this year, Hal and I were both on the budget committee. We started meeting in
Months ago.
January?
And we started meeting early because of the problem last year. So we
Right.
thought, let's give everybody a chance.
So we wanted to spend a lot of ahead of time work on that. So I would say really December, January timeframe is when we would need to really get together with those items that are of big importance and say, okay. And then we can ship that out early and say, hey, this is what it's looking like. This is what we think is going to happen. These are what our numbers look like. We have a halfway decent idea on what tourism looks like. We're halfway through the year at that point in time, the fiscal year. So we've got a pretty decent idea where our budget's going to fall. This is what it looks like it's going to do. What is each one of those communities' hot points? What are those?
So you guys meet every other month?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 6, what are the 6 months that you meet? Do you know?
We're
So
going to meet this month, and so every other month.
every other month. So we'll meet. Yeah.
January, March, May, July,
And then just,
December,
yeah, just go through
and
it.
so on. Mr. Bailey?
Okay. Again, as you're all very aware, we live in a county where our voters are very, very frugal. And that's where my question was coming from.
Oh,
And I, as well as you, want Helen to be paid fairly for what she does, and that's not where I was going. I'm just saying, for us to keep this moving and to have it pass the next time it comes up and all that kind of stuff, we got to make sure that we're being, responsible with the taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely. And that budget line item, I don't know if anybody ever directly answered that. It's if the board chooses to grant that raise, the money's there to do it. That raise has not been granted
No,
yet.
and I understand that.
Okay, yep.
And I guess the other challenge that you have is marketing just by design is very, very difficult to quantify. We can't say we spent $70,000 on international marketing and we had this many people show up from Europe and here's what they spent. That's really difficult to quantify. So again, we're in this mode where it's hard to nail down, when we say we're gonna spend $1 million and we're gonna fix this sewer line, at the end of that project, we have a sewer line that works and we know it's there. Well, marketing is not that way.
We hope it does.
Yeah, we hope it's.
Cross our fingers, and we say that it does so that we feel good about making the decision to market what we market.
So, that's the challenge that,
In asset development, we're really restricted on what we can do with those funds. And some asset development we can't. yeah, we would love to help them build a soccer field. We can't. Can't use it for that. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kip. I might just make one more comment, so it doesn't sound like it's, we have a dartboard, and that's how we do the marketing campaign. It isn't like that at all. I've got a background in marketing, and so we went through each line item and expenditure. Where are we going to allocate these ad dollars? And every time we have a board meeting, in the packet, let's just take social media, to which I don't know a whole lot about. So we expend money on, I don't know, Facebook ads. I don't know, I'm making this up. And then we get that feedback, looks, likes, whatever those metrics are that are in that bailiwick. And so Helen reports that to the board. So we do know how some of this is working out. When I ran an ad in Field and Stream or Boys Life or whatever, I didn't know. Unless there was a direct response card in the back of the magazine, hey, I want to know more about compasses and binoculars, you know. But advertising is also dynamic. And if we're starting to see more people coming in from, I mean, and she's got the pulse on it. She goes to these seminars and it's like, hey, listen, there's a bunch of people coming in from Berlin. They're going to be in Cheyenne, and they're thinking, gosh, can we go up to the Wind River Indian Reservation? So the people that came and went over to Hudson, the van tour, I mean, those were things that, you know, your chairman helped put together. So there are some definitive things, but you can't quantify all that. Mr. Bailey's correct. You just can't. But it's not like we don't know what we're doing, because we kind of do.
Educated guessing.
You're able to look.
Yeah, but boy, that was persuasive.
We're not saying Helen doesn't know what she's doing.
No.
Helen, do you mind? I wanted to ask you a quick question.
Helen was going to say something, though.
Oh, Hal, were you going to say something else?
No, Helen was going to say something just before you started talking.
Oh, I was going to start talking about data, but I could go on and on. I'm really big on data, and I also follow what the rest of the state, how much their tourism is going up or down, and compare us to how much ours is going up and down. And then, yeah, I won't get into it.
So I guess we talked a little bit about TAD. You ended up inheriting TAD. I mean, that had already been a part of the process. What do you think about it? Do you see it as working well? Do you see that it just, I guess, your honest thoughts on it?
Okay, and I can be completely honest and transparent about this. I really like that there's an opportunity for communities to market, have local control to do their marketing. I see a lot of issues with it, and I have tried to work through some of them with, we have lodging tax advisors through the state, and I work with two people who have always had concerns that if we ever got more money, that the TAD, there becomes a battle, and TAD is not in state statute. It is a program that the Wind River Visitors Council created, and I get concerned about where the money is spent, and that I think that there's a lot of intentional decisions with people with marketing backgrounds that go into marketing campaigns, and as I already mentioned, I'm always happy to help. I'm always happy to listen, but there are problems, and it seems to create a battle. Because the rest of the state, there's a chunk of money, it's a county tax, which is what this is, it's a county tax, and you market the county. And when you start divvying it up, then it does create, I feel like there's a lot of time in the office spent trying to explain TAD and trying to work people through the TAD process. I do like that there's local control. I like that money can be spent on events. I like that there's other people who are involved who can say, okay, we're having this great event. We want to put all this money toward it. And that I don't need to be part of those decisions, and that we don't have to have conversations about it. I do get concerned when we don't get clean TAD reports, because if the money is spent wrong, or if the money is unaccounted for, it is not the cities or the towns that are responsible. It's the Wind River Visitors Council. And so sometimes when we get TAD reports and there's just, one line that says, I don't know, library, for example, my concern is, well, what was it spent on at the library? And, I'm the person nagging, I'm the person calling and saying, can you tell me exactly what this was spent on so that I know when I get asked? So that is a concern. I think we need clean TAD reports. We need communication. We're always happy to meet and help out. But I think that if we didn't have the TAD program, my job would be simpler. But I do think that the TAD program is a good program.
So I guess from your perspective, what we're talking about next on the agenda, which is being able to have an MOU with the chamber and making sure that we've got a better idea of where those funds are going, how they're being spent, that sort of thing, that makes sense to you.
I think any kind of communication and transparency is a really good thing. And I think for people who don't work with the TAD program every day and work with the lodging tax every day, it is confusing, and it is confusing where you can spend it. But essentially, it's the Wind River Visitors Council that is responsible for making sure that it's spent right.
Would it, I know, well, I guess that's a later discussion. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Helen. Were there any other questions? I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse too much.
Call for the question.
Call for the question. Well, okay, so the motion was to approve the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Wind River Visitors Council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for being in here. I really appreciate your hard work. Yes.
One second.
Yes.
We voted approval, but we didn't ask them to come back and visit us on a regular basis.
And that's a part of the joint powers agreement. I guess when would make sense, and what do you want that to look like, if you don't mind coming back up, Ms. Wilson? I mean, it could be good if, it would make sense in terms of being able to give feedback, which is what Councilwoman Salisbury was talking about, that we'd have Hal and Julie here. And it makes sense in terms of being able to get information, to have you here. Is that too big of a drain, or does that make sense?
I think it does make sense. I will start sending our board packets to the cities as well as the representatives for one, and then you'll have information as we move along. I think for the actual in-person communication, I think that it would make more sense for the representatives to talk to the council, but I will be here to answer any questions that anybody has. But I think that it makes more sense for them to lead those efforts, and then I can be there.
So maybe more of the report would be by them, but you'd be available and in attendance.
Well, I would provide the report, as I do already, to the Wind River Visitors Council Board of Directors. But I feel like because they're the representatives, I don't want to. I have a habit of talking too much, and Hal does such a good job at it.
Mr. Herron, Ms. Buller, what do you guys think? Okay?
Mr. Mayor,
Come on up.
Are we just going to report, or we're going to have a discussion on, you guys are going to share with us and say this is things that you're seeing and hearing that you want us to?
I'd like to share what we
I think both would be
ways.
appropriate.
And this is
Don't mind.
the forum to do that?
Well,
I mean, generally speaking, we want to have transparency.
Right.
We want to have, public feedback, that sort of thing. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
and one thing, we just want to know what's working, what's not working. We just want to just be part of not the process of doing your job. What have we hit home runs on? What's going on, so that maybe we could bring something.
Well, and
Well,
I
then-
think if any of us want to meet with them with ideas, we can meet with them, but then the whole council, since we can't meet outside of this, like if there's some ideas or questions, I think we can always meet with our representatives and then have a public meeting for the.
That's right.
Your Honor, that's what my idea was, to maybe have a work session where we can talk openly and we don't have to worry about the agenda necessarily. Can we do that in an open forum?
Well, I guess we'd be planning on 4 work sessions if we were going to, well, I guess we could probably do 3 because we'd have the budget, which would be one of them. Which, thank you very much for being patient through about an hour-long discussion about the budget. That, I mean, really, we just want to make sure we're good stewards. And like I was saying, kind of like you were saying with, I worry about TAD because it's my responsibility. We worry about all of it because we're the ones who answer to the taxpayers directly. So I think we could do a work session. Maybe we could discuss that more. Maybe we could have at least 1 or 2 work sessions and then maybe one that's a regular meeting or something and figure that out. Mr. Butterfield.
I would recommend that you do it as a council. Just as a reminder, 1 member does not a council make. And so when you speak directly to your representatives, you're not representing the city council. And so I think to provide transparency, better discussion, it makes sense in a work session or a business meeting if you choose to meet with your representatives and have discussions.
All right, well, we'll sort it out.
Okay.
And Mr. Herron, Ms. Buller, if you're willing to be there, and Ms. Wilson,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just would make a recommendation. So now you're about, apparently the council has not seen quarterly reports as of now, right?
That's correct.
Is that true? Okay.
don't believe
So
so.
maybe what you want to do is get your feet wet, get this first board packet. That's going to be, we have a board meeting next week. Get the board packet, so you'll be able to look at that, and the data contained therein. And you'll also get the quarterly report that she sends out. And so maybe you can make that determination. You might say, gosh, those guys are brilliant at the typewriter, we don't need to meet. Or we could do it in Kyle's a smart guy, and sometimes I agree or disagree. I understand where he's coming with this, but I was thinking a work group, so we didn't take up time, for other people that may be wanting to participate in your city council meeting. I know he's got a reason for it, but maybe the series of questions are back and forth. I thought where you were going with this is more of a brainstorming. Okay, let's think about what do we want to do with this? And I just don't know if you want to burn up city staff time, in a formal city council meeting to do that. But I'm not the expert, y'all are, and I'll defer to you.
Thank you, Mr. Herron. So if we were going to do this, we'd be June, July, probably somewhere around August. By then, we should have the tourism feasibility study back. By then, we should have a better idea of where we want to go with the destination development funds, if it's going to be different than the plan. And you would have had a chance for 2 meetings, additional meetings by then, right? Because you would have had May and July, and that would be kind of between your meetings there. So if that works, let's plan on that just soft right now, that we'll do August. Thank you very much for being here, and I'm probably sure for people that are watching this online that didn't know what the Wind River Visitors Council was or what you did, hopefully it's been educational. And I will say, when I was on the council before, really our biggest discussion really was approving the budget, and that was really the only time we talked about it. And so being able to have more, I think, feedback, more involvement, more understanding, I think would be good, and I think it will really help. So I really appreciate your willingness, so thank you. And I will say, on behalf of FAST, that we really appreciate that the Wind River Visitors Council has been contributing and has increased that contribution, because about 4 years ago, that was a bone of contention, was the idea was 0 going towards FAST that year. So really appreciate that recognition in the budget. And
Is it too late to get a Wind River Visitor Council proclamation out of you?
it's Proclamation Month, Hal. I mean, you go to the other room, type it up, and if it's something that's good, you said you're a good typer, I mean.
We can give you a badge back. This is from the Wind River Visitor Council that we're going to use for our treasure. Thank you, Helen.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll move on to our next item. MOU, Riverton Chamber of Commerce Tourism Asset Development Program. So luckily, we've gotten a lot of discussion about this out. Maybe this will be faster. This is the Public Works Director's report, so if you could please provide that for us, Mr. Eggleston.
Your Honor, if it's okay, I'll take that for Brian.
Oh, come on.
I didn't prepare.
Oh, Well, I'm glad that you're there to take over.
Your Honor, I think this is a perfect segue after the discussion you just had. I think you have a very clear understanding of what TAD is, where it comes from. What you're looking at right now is an agreement to help manage the TAD monies that come directly to Riverton. For a number of years, the Chamber has served as the clearinghouse for the city of Riverton. However, there has never been an agreement in place to outline the details of how that relationship works and how the TAD funds are distributed from the Chamber on behalf of the city of Riverton. So to clarify responsibilities, this MOU was prepared. It was delivered to the Chamber a little bit ago, and on May 12th, I received confirmation from the Chamber President that they were okay with the terms of the MOU and moving forward. With their concurrence, it's now before you for consideration. And just to hit some high notes of the agreement designates the Chamber as the Established Promotion Committee. That's a term that is in the TAD program as established by Wind River Visitor Council. So you're agreeing to make the Chamber your promotion committee. Then it states that the Chamber will comply with all rules, regulations, and guidelines of the TAD program as established by the Visitor Council. It also states that the Chamber will keep these funds separate, that they will not be used for their operations, personnel costs, or other purposes without the prior consent and permission of the City Council. So if it turns out that the Chamber chooses to utilize TAD funds to support, let's say, a salary that's completely dedicated to marketing or tourism promotion, they couldn't do that without first your consent and approval. It does also state that the Chamber will collaborate with the city to develop a tourism asset development program. Now, again, this is a term that's established under the TAD program from the Visitor Council. What they'd like to see with the TAD monies is this program outline. We do not have one in place at this time. So this agreement states that the Chamber and the city will work together to start scoping the use of these TAD dollars, and maybe that serves to answer some of the questions that were just discussed with the previous agenda item. The Chamber also states that the agreement also states that the Chamber will come and inform the city prior to soliciting grants with the TAD monies, and that they will come back and report to you at least twice a year. The first presentation shall include at a minimum the amount of TAD dollars distributed by the Visitor Council and how the TAD dollars were distributed then to our local community. The second time that they come back at a minimum, the Chamber will report how those allocations were used, if there were leftover funds, and how those leftover funds are going to be accounted for and used moving forward. The city has the right to audit the Chamber as it relates to any TAD dollars that they hold, and then if there are any issues, then we can address that pursuant to what's outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding. Your options tonight are to approve the MOU as presented, to amend it, or you could say we don't want to have the Chamber serve as our clearinghouse, we want some other entity to do it for us. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, the chair would entertain a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City of Riverton and the Y Riverton Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Center regarding the management of the Tourism Asset Development Funds.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilwoman Borders. Discussion. I have a typo. Paragraph 5 says Tourism Asset Develop Program rather than development.
Good catch, Your Honor.
And then I guess I also had a question. Reporting would be at the January and July board meetings of the Wind River Visitors Council. So according to this MOU, they would be coming to you and they would be saying, this is what's been happening with our funds. I would think, I understood your concern in terms of wanting to be able to answer for the use of these funds. That would, I would think, help out with that.
Thank you.
You're nodding.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Your Honor, I took that basically from the program outline, so we should be doing that right now. We need to be reporting back to Helen, because as she explained, she is the steward of these funds, and if there's ever an issue of how TAD is being used, that audit is going to go against her because she's watching over those funds. So
Good.
we should be, or our steward our assigned designee should be reporting back to Helen.
So far, we've had a clean audit, so that's been good. So we want to keep that up. Mr. Bailey? Oh,
So basically, the Chamber of Commerce will have a set of specifications that, what funds are authorized to be used for, and they'll be responsible to us to follow it. We're responsible to her.
who's also responsible
Who's
to
also
her board, who's
responsible to her
responsible
board.
to us.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it all falls on
Now it
us.
comes back and it's Julie's fault.
I think it's a great idea with some of the changes we've had over the years with directors and stuff. I think this is very great way to have some accountability that was missing at times.
Well, it
prior.
ties it down.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then already, it is going to be part of the audit that, as long as we keep it $1 million or more, but we could also be auditing and make sure that we've got things going on like they should be. Any other questions, discussion, typos? I just stumbled on that one. Okay, well then, let's vote. All in favor of the approval of the MOU between the City of Riverton and the Y Riverton Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Center regarding the TAD funds, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Did we? Yes.
Just clarification, we are the Y Riverton Chamber and Visitor Center, there's no commerce?
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you, Julie, Ms. Bullard. I will remember that in the future. I will say that's what was written, and that's okay. We'll note it.
Is it noted here?
Yeah, maybe we want to change that in the MOU then.
Your Honor, we'd be happy to. We sent this to the chamber in March, so we'll make sure all names are appropriate in the MOU before it's signed.
So as long as you're not against commerce, okay.
Are you in favor of commerce or not? Well, I appreciate it. That is a good catch. We'll make sure that that's consistent throughout, and
And it is spring and it's branding season, so we're okay.
it is branding. Okay, well, good. We're just moving right along. 13, bid award, airport snow removal equipment, Public Work Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. Before you tonight is a bid award for a new piece of equipment up at the airport, actually multiple pieces. Snow removal equipment. It's required under our license for our Part 139 license to provide prompt snow, ice, slush removal or control on aircraft movement areas up at the airport. What this bid is for a heavy loader, a snow blower, a set of forklifts, and also a bucket, which is actually included in the bid on the loader on this recommended award. The bid went out through our consulting firm, J-Aviation. They advertised in the Riverton Ranger, to the Casper Star, and also the Denver Daily Journal. They had originally 4 schedules. Schedule 1 was the snow blower. Schedule 2 is the loader itself. And Schedule 3 would have been the forklift attachment for the loader. Schedule 4, which originally included a bucket, which most loaders come with a bucket. So that was basically included in our bid award recommendation. We've gone through the specs, our staff, along with J-Aviation, to ensure they were responsive to the bid. And our recommendation is to award each of the schedules, Schedule 1 in the amount of $371,487, Schedule 2, $483,309.58, and Schedule 3 for $11,061.25, or a total of $865,857.83 to Honan Equipment Company in Casper, or actually Mills.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Eggleston. The chair would entertain a motion to award Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3 of the snow removal equipment acquisition to Honan Equipment Company in Mills, Wyoming, in the amount of $371,487 for Schedule 1, $483,309.58 for Schedule 2, just making sure I've got all the numbers right, $11,061.25 for Schedule 3, for a grand total of $865,857.83.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilman Peranto. Any discussion? Well, that's pretty slick that they were able to take care of Schedule 4 as part of the other three schedules.
Your Honor, Schedule 4 is a little bit odd. When you buy a loader, you buy a bucket for a loader, so I'm surprised any of the other companies would sell it separately, but.
Yeah, interesting. Well, and I was looking initially at the power equipment bid, and I was like, wait a minute, that's half. Well, that's because they didn't provide for Schedule 2. If they had not been the lowest bid for all the schedules, then we would have gone with one of the others for part of the schedule and then the others for the others. That's the
Correct.
point of the schedule. Gotcha. All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Airport seal coat and marking project. City administrators report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be brief. Every 4 years, the state of Wyoming bids out a seal coat and marking project. This is basically to invest in the infrastructure that we all are benefiting from at the airport. Because the state puts this out as a bid, we get an economy of scale. There were several other airports in our region that were part of this bid. 2 bidders responded. For our specific airport, we had 4 schedules. Schedule 1 was mostly our runway and taxiway. Schedule 2 was our apron area. Schedule 3 was some of the landside development, so nearer the parking lot and the approach roads. And then Schedule 4 was a bid alternate, allowing for the use of almost a plastic type of a paint. It's called methyl methacrylate. We've used that before. In fact, we awarded it 4 years ago. This one came in a little bit higher, and so tonight we're recommending the award of Schedule 1, 2, and 3. It is within what we are projecting in the upcoming budget for fiscal year '24, and it's within the engineer's estimate that WIDOT put together before they went and advertised this bid. So tonight you're awarding those schedules, and then we're communicating to WIDOT, who was the bidder, to then establish the contract and set the project up. American Road Maintenance was the low bidder, Straight Stripe was the other bidder. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. All right, the chair would entertain a motion to award Schedules 1, 2, and 3 of the airport seal coat and marking project to American Road Maintenance in the amount of $437,111.50.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Peranto with the motion, Councilwoman Salisbury with the second. Discussion on that. This is well below the engineer's estimate. Did we get Scotty from Star Trek to be over-exaggerating things and then so we could call him a miracle worker when it came in under? Or?
Your Honor, the best way I could respond to this is we've reviewed it, and we have been able to assure that their submittal meets the bid specifications. Again, keep in mind that these bidders are putting in on the total project for multiple airports, and so they spread their costs across several locations, and so it just worked out that the estimate and the bid for us worked to our advantage on this one. We always ensure that they meet our bid specifications because it is a flag when you see numbers come in either really high or really low.
Well, that makes sense. If you're going to buy from a wholesaler, for example, for, I don't know, however many hundreds of gallons of paint versus just 1 gallon of paint, it's a lot cheaper. Kind of like we piggyback our purchases of vehicles. It helps us to save money that way as well, so.
Works in theory,
Yeah.
unless you're buying water from the city of Riverton.
That has been a bone of contention for you, hasn't it, Mr. Bailey? All right. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right. Well, one of the things about technology is that we can get communication from people while we're up here. And I didn't realize that we had a representative from the city, from the Riverton Chamber and Visitor Center, that was willing to talk about how TAD has been spent thus far. And I don't know, we could have had that discussion when we were talking about the MOU, and I'm sorry I didn't realize that. But Janet Winslow is here. She's willing to discuss if the council would like to hear about that tonight, or we could save it for another day. It kind of made sense because we were talking about the MOU tonight, and she's here. But what's the
Up
council's
to Janet if she wants
thought on
to
that?
or not.
Do you want to come and talk to us just briefly about where TAD has been spent? We'll kind of go back and we'll pretend like this was item 12. It's going to make it difficult when they're planning out when they have this on video, they actually kind of separate it by items, and it's going to cause confusion for our IT folks, but that's
Sorry
life.
about that. So Janet Winslow with the Chamber. I always put this in the wrong spot. The Riverton Chamber and Visitor Center, let me clarify, make sure I get that right. And before I start, I've been reminded to let you know that we are doing an open house on May 26th from 4 to 8 for the grand opening of the Heritage Center and Visitor Center. There'll be live music, hot air balloons, hatchet throwing. There'll be cat and dog adoptions, and the veterans will be doing food. So we would love to see all of you and all the city come out and participate. And as it was stated before, we did make changes to the TAD. We're constantly trying to get our minds around this. I won't go into how it was done in the past, but we talked to other chambers. There aren't a lot that do the TAD, as Helen alluded to before, but we did talk and look at other budgets in Fremont County, and the budgets that seem to meet approval with no question, and mirrored ours to meet them. We did make some exceptions, and I'll go over those, but in general, we're doing $1,000 awards, and there's 13 of those that are available. And then we also got behind bigger asset developments that need and have had our support in the past, like the 1838 Rendezvous. Sorry, I misspoke. They requested 38, we're giving them 1,000. Boys and Girls Club requested 1,000, and we denied them because they don't fall under the required criteria, which we can go over as part of the MOU. These applications are submitted in January. We review them in February as a committee, and going forward, we will present, like we're doing now. We have not made any awards. We will present first, and then allow y'all to question us, make recommendations, so on and so forth, before we send out the letters. But our community is getting antsy to get their letters. The balloon rally, we've always supported, and we will continue to support with a budget or with a grant of $10,000. They requested 13, and we've done that in the past, but we are working with them to increase their revenue in more of a business format. So we'll put a plug-in calendar on the Riverton website where anybody locally and out of state can go to the website and make an appointment to get a balloon ride, weather pending. And that will be the verbiage on there, and the price will be set by the Balloon Club, then that will cover the propane and will cover the cost of the balloon so that they can start building up their nest egg, building up their budget. There were several that did not, and we'll send this to you, that did not meet the requirements and that were denied. I won't go through all those unless you want me to. Fremont County Air Service is another big one, and we are granting them $10,000. That's their full ask. The beef roundup is another one because we do feel like it is a county-wide asset, and we are approving them the full amount of $5,000. The soccer club is another big one. They requested $10,000, and we are giving them $6,000. Again, there are 13 of the $1,000, and I can just give them to you really quickly, but there were bigger grants that were awarded because they are Riverton assets, but they're Fremont County assets. And one of the things that, as Christy said, we would love to not just get guidance, not just get answers, and not just get discussion, but we'd like to get actual money to develop these assets because they are county-wide tourist assets. When the balloon club puts on something and when the balloon goes up, people notice. It draws people from everywhere. The beef roundup is growing, and that is a huge asset to the whole county. It's not just Riverton, it just happens to be held in Riverton. And as Christy said before, there are several entities, cities that don't want the dollars. They don't want people pointed to them. So we would love to see the joint powers come together and say, okay, let's talk and let's see between the joint powers who wants money and who doesn't, who has assets that can be developed and whose assets are already developed beyond what their capacity is. And then let's talk about the money that way. So that's my soapbox for tonight. I can get this to Kyle, who then could maybe include it in the packet. And we are still working on creating a good system, but we feel like this method has been approved by the Wind River Visitors Council Board very easily from other cities in our county, and so we adopted it in hopes that they would be happier with our presentation.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. If you can get that to Mr. Butterfield, then he'll distribute it and we'll have it. So, thank you very much, Ms. Winslow. Okay, back to item 15. Easement, Modelers Park, Community Development Director's Report.
Yes, Your Honor, Council. This easement currently exists across a parcel of land owned by the city of Riverton, adjacent to Paradise Valley Road, up by the weather station. This easement allows access to Richard and Josephine Gilpatrick's land located to the east of the city of Riverton's parcel. That parcel of land of theirs is landlocked without this easement. It is an access, drainage, irrigation, and utility easement that is 60 foot wide for ingress and egress and utility use. The language in the current easement states that in the event of future development and expansion of the airport, the easement can be revoked or vacated with a 6-month written notice. It also indicates that the easement will not continue in perpetuity should the Gilpatricks sell their parcel of land in the future. Currently, expansion of the airport in that direction of property is not planned or in any foresight of any airport master plan. And the Gilpatricks are looking at selling that property or working out a deal with that property with the Modelers Park. If the Modelers Park was to take over that property today, technically by law, they wouldn't have access to that property because the easement would be void. So altering the language of the easement to remove the revocability will allow the Gilpatricks to sell that land without the new buyer losing access to that parcel of land. The location and size of the easement will remain exactly the same. The language in the easement is exactly the same, minus 4 words. Maintenance of the access road will be the responsibility of the land currently owned by the Gilpatricks. Alternatives, we could obviously deny the new easement claim or approve the new easement with stipulations or conditions as council sees fit. There's no budget impact. On the staff recommendation, and it is a recommendation of staff that the city council approve the easement as written. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the Gilpatrick Access Drainage Irrigation and Utility Easement as been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Peranto with the motion. Councilwoman Borders with the second. Discussion. Questions?
I'd like Mr. Edgington to come up and tell us how he's going to do a tourist asset development with the Modelers Park. I'm just kidding, you don't have to, Randy. If you want to, you can. If you have an idea, you can.
I appreciate you sitting through a lot of that discussion to get to be the last, well, second to last item on the agenda. You might as well talk. You're here.
Hi, my name's Randy Edgington, Your Honor, and I'm a member of the Wyoming Modelers Park, and yes, we're looking at purchasing a piece of land, and our Modelers Park previously was out to the north of town. It's been kind of a long, drawn-out process, and we went through the same out here years ago when we built this park. You go through the FAA because we are technically inside of Riverton's airspace down to the ground, and you get approval. And we just recently finally got a letter of agreement from the FAA that's pretty stringent on the rules, basic same rules that we have here in this area. And Rick and Josephine were more than kind to offer to sell us that piece of land, which is part of their gravel mining permit, but sample holes have indicated that it's not a good spot to drill or for gravel use for later. So until we have the access across that piece, particularly to make it non-revocable, so that we will basically use it. We go through the same gate currently. I hope you got a map. We go through currently the same as the motocross track does, and then we would access right to there, and then the Gilpatrick's access would continue right across this 20-acre piece that they're looking at selling to us. So I would entertain any questions that you might have. And
Any question?
any.
Randy's married to my cousin, so I'm harassing him tonight.
That's probably good. He probably needs it. Any other discussion or questions? Councilman Bailey?
It doesn't really have to do with the easement, but I assume the FAA doesn't let you fly your model planes when any other commercial flights are going, or?
No, they do
I'm just curious how close it is to the airport. That's got to be a challenge a little bit, but.
There is. You're inside of a limited airspace that we maintain. And exactly that. You're required to sacrifice the aircraft if necessary. Do whatever you got to do, just put it on the ground. Yeah. And it's the same rules here, where when you look at where the previous Modelers Park was, we're right in line with 2-8. And when you'd see aircraft coming in, everybody would put down, land, go down and land. So.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Your Honor,
Makes it easier to see them if you're closer.
is there an existing road there, or are they going to have to put that in?
There is
to
an
maintain it?
existing road. I mean, they've used that particular piece of property for many years. It is part of their gravel pit, the Gilpatrick's.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question, Randy. Where geographically is it? Because you have I guess it's kind of hard to tell. Is it downwind for 10?
No. You have 2, 8, and 10.
Right.
You got 0, 1, 19. It's sort of catty corner. When you're looking, are you looking at an area? Okay, so the property borders the motocross track.
Okay. To the east?
Borders the motocross track to the east.
Okay.
Right. And I don't have a map with me, and I'd tell you exactly how many.
Yeah, no worries.
that was.
I was just curious, because that would be left downwind for 10. How high does your airspace go?
500 feet is what they're approved for.
Technically, if everybody's doing everything right, you should be good to go.
Well, and I'm a general aviation pilot. And
Of course you are.
You are, and we both fly in and out of there all the time, and having surprises pop up would not be something that any
It's
of
going
us.
to be interesting having a little mini runway next to the runway that has numbers on it.
Well, we'll probably try to avoid any numbers, yeah, or lighting
You
systems.
guys had numbers on the old one, didn't you?
They did, and they thought that was cool.
It was clever right up until you.
They did. They had
Lighting
2, 8, and 10. It was really great until somebody landed there, yeah.
Just curious. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. All in favor of approving the easement as been presented and discussed, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks.
It's good to see that getting rebuilt.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. And with no further ado, item 16, which is our quarterly fiscal health report. Do you need a minute to set up, or how are you doing?
If all goes well, I should be set up in about 15 seconds. But it's never happened for me in the past. It's all gone right.
Oh, well done.
Kurt started me on this before the meeting tonight.
Yeah, I saw him up there working with it.
So thank you for your time this evening. This is the end of the third quarter of the fiscal health report. It's hard to believe that we're already almost to the close of our fiscal year. This year, our fiscal year 2023 budget was approved in excess of just right at $30.4 million. Our capital expenditures were $13.5 million, and 6.6 of that, which is 49% of our capital projects, was offset by grant funding. So I'll just start with the general fund. The total budget in the general fund is $8.8 million, and it makes up approximately 29% of the total budget for the city. It is the largest fund in the city. And at the close of the third quarter, the general fund reflected a positive balance of $562,000 and some change. The fund closed the second quarter with a balance of negative $674,000. So this is a $1.2 million swing from one quarter to the next. It's largely attributed to the second tranche of our supplemental funding that we received in January, along with the receipt of anticipated grant revenue that we were expecting from a YDOT TAP grant for the North Federal Lighting Project. This period last year, the fund closed with a balance of $590,000 to the positive. And as a reminder, the budget was approved to transfer $818,000 from cash for operations this year. So we are sitting significantly better than what our budgeted plans show. Okay, the next slide in the budget goes over the airport fund, and the total budget for the airport fund was $6.8 million, with $6.2 million in capital projects scheduled for the year. The airport fund closed the quarter with a balance of $7,340 in our revenues over expenditures, and the closing balance for the second quarter was $190,000. The approved airport budget included a transfer of cash for $237,000 to support operations. During this period last year, the fund closed at $421,000, and this was due to us receiving a lot of ARPA and CARES Act and CARISA grant monies for operations last year. And I should also mention that one of our larger capital projects this year has been delayed. It will flow over into next year's capital project budget, and we do have that slated in the budget, and it will be presented to you in the next couple weeks at the budget work session meeting. So the water fund, the annual budget for the water fund is $3.1 million. There are $344,000 in capital projects proposed for the year. The fund closed the quarter with a positive balance of $84,586 in revenues over expenditures. The closing balance for the second quarter was $58,794, resulting in a quarterly gain of approximately $25,000. The budget was approved with the transfer of $319,000 to cover capital projects. We have limited capital purchases this year for this fund. The largest budgeted expense that we had in the water fund was the completion of the Cowboy Lane, Quiver Lane water project, which is now substantially complete. We also budgeted improvements to the bulk fill station, which is still underway, and improvements to the carbon feed system at the water treatment plant, which has also been completed. Last year, during this same period, the quarter closed with a deficit balance of $87,000. So we're still doing pretty good in the water fund. In the wastewater fund, the annual budget is $3.1 million, and this is largely due to a 32% increase in capital projects over our previous year. Some of the major capital projects were basically refurbishing our entire wastewater treatment plant. So some of the major purchases were those continued improvements at the plant. We also budgeted to include the Mesquite Drive sewer replacement project, which is currently underway. Had the opportunity to drive down 2nd Street on Monday, and I can see where they're lacing those sewer lines, or they're lining them. So that's underway right now. The fund closed the quarter with $67,000 to $543,000 in revenues over expenditures. And our second quarter balance was $63,744. So we're just right at about a $3,900 difference from one quarter to the next. The budget was approved with a transfer of $694,000 to cover capital. So right now we're still doing okay. We're $67,000 ahead of the game. Last year during this same period, the quarter closed with a balance of $68,960. In the sanitation fund, the annual budget is just in slightly excess of $3 million, and there were $649,000 in capital projects proposed. Some of our major planned purchases included a new sanitation truck, which we have scheduled for arrival in mid-June, a compost screener, 3-yard container replacements. We received that shipment of containers, so they are in-house, well, at the public workshop, and a recycle truck. The bid for the sanitation truck came in a little higher than expected, so we have postponed the compost screener and the recycle truck, and they're placed on hold for a future budget. The fund closed the quarter with $149,000 in revenue over in expenditures, and this is an increase of $107,000 from second quarter. We have budgeted a transfer of $675,000 to cover costs on operational and capital projects. And last year, the quarter closed with a deficit balance of $245,000. That was mainly because we received our sanitation truck. We haven't received it yet this year. And then with the air service fund, it's primarily funded by the 0.5% economic development tax, which has provided a huge relief to the municipalities, a general fund for the cost of air service. And at the close of the third quarter, the air service fund reflect a balance of $651,000 in revenues over expenditures. We do receive our air service invoices a little delayed from YDOT, so those are yet to come in. Last year's closing balance during this time was negative $10,593. This is my first time in my experience or history as the finance director that all of our funds have closed a quarter all in the positive. So it's something that I'm really excited about. So I would stand for any questions that anybody would have.
Any questions? I will say that is really impressive, and I'd like to give all the credit to you, but I know that the credit goes to our staff in terms of making sure that we're very frugal, we're very responsible with the taxpayers' money, and I appreciate all you do.
Thank you. I only hope we can come through fourth quarter looking this good, but nonetheless, I'm hoping if we do have to transfer funds, that it's going to be significantly less than we budgeted. So that's what we're hoping for.
That's been great so far this year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. So, well, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, we are at that time where we have the council committee reports and council members roundtable. Anybody just itching to go first rather than just me deciding? We should start having like a dart board or something. Or you want to go first, Councilman Bailey?
I can.
How about you go ahead?
Okay. Again, since we've met last time, I apologize, I was gone last week. I was at the National Petroleum Marketer meeting in Washington, D.C., and I did get to meet with our 2 senators and the staff from Congresswoman Hagman's office, and so I got them all lined out. We should be fine in the future. You know, they're always, we are very, very lucky to live in Wyoming, where we have very good access to our representatives, both on a state and a national level. They're always very receptive, and they always listen, and they're very well in tune with how things work. Talking to my colleagues from other states, they are not near as receptive to even being, they're lucky if they get to see staff, no less the actual representatives or senators. And so I think we should feel pretty lucky to be here in Wyoming. And, you know, we have a pretty good group of folks, and they work hard for us, I think, and they fight an uphill battle, as we all do, with the federal government and its encroachment into all of the things that we do in the world. And it's a mixed blessing. I guess they send money back our way, but they always have lots of strings hooked to it. So other than that, I have not had any city-type meetings, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Borders.
Your Honor, I have not had any meetings to attend, aside from the finance earlier and tonight's council meeting. I do believe that PAWS will be meeting. I know that they had a yard sale a couple weeks ago, and they did really well. I was really happy with the turnout that we saw. And I'll just go through some of the GoRiverton.com events. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 5 to 7, City Park Farmers Market. It's pretty exciting that we have such a nice park to feature such an awesome event. So 5 to 7, bring your shopping bag and your checkbook or whatever you use, cash, credit, whatever, and plan on filling that puppy up. I hear that one of our local retailers has the empty meat case, so it's a perfect opportunity to show up at the farmer's market and see what you can get. Eggs, dairy, they might have some meat down there. Also tomorrow is a presentation at the Riverton Museum. It's at 6 o'clock, and it's called Gold Fever and the Atomic Age. Looks like it's kind of interesting. The 70th anniversary of uranium being discovered in the gas hills. It's kind of awesome. I think anyone that's been here for any amount of time realizes how big uranium was here at one time. And I think it's coming back. My dad actually worked in the gas hills, so that's kind of cool. Let's see, what else do we have? Atlantic City Federal's having business after hours on Thursday. That's from, let's see, it starts at 5:30. It doesn't show an end time, so show up at Atlantic City Federal Credit Union. I'm sure you'll have lots of fun there. And then the other thing that was really interesting tonight is when Alan Sinner came and told us about the rodeo. I'm so excited for that, and I'll start giving it shameless plugs every time I have a chance. June 9th through the 11th, I think he said. So make plans to be there. One of the biggest rodeos in Wyoming, so, and it should be a lot of fun. I have never gone, but I plan to go this year. And that's about all I have.
Thank you. And I guess, do we have, just to make sure, Mia, Thursday we have an EDGE meeting, is that correct, 6 p.m.?
Correct.
Okay. I just was looking at the calendar too, and I figured I'd add that. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Borders.
You betcha.
All right, Councilwoman Salisbury.
I've had a couple meetings, one with you that you'll probably be talking about later. I'll let the Wind River Visitors Council. As you can tell, we had lots of questions from that meeting. And then I had another one this morning at 9 with the eager group talking about the ARPA funding for trails and pathways. And so I talked to Kyle and Brian a little bit about what the city might be able to work with. So that's all I have to report on.
Thank you. Councilman Larson.
The only meeting I've attended was Solid Waste Board. We have 3 scales received, one in Du Bois, one in Lander, and the third one escapes me because I can't remember it. We have a budget approved over there of $9,900,000 plus, and $5 million of that came from unspent money from last year. The thing that pops up in my mind, last year at this time, we were worried about the price of diesel. And everybody was budgeting, in fact, they budgeted 185% increase in diesel price. And I asked Kyle if we had done the same, and he assured me we had. And it's not a topic of discussion. Fuel's not a topic anymore. It's come back somewhat. It isn't where we would like to see it, some of us. And Mike's father used to tell a story that I think I will tell. He was always accused, Mike's father owned Bailey Enterprises before Mike did, and he was always accused of setting the price of gasoline too high in Fremont County. And he would dispute that. And they would say, well, what proof do you have? Well, at the time it was $2.50 or less. And he said, if it were me that was setting the price, it'd be at $5. And which would always anger the individual that was accusing him. Anyway, so solid waste is projecting closure still of Lander in 2028, 2029. And this year, for the first time, we dropped from reserves of $21 million. And through the requirements of closing of Lander, expanding sand draw, now I can remember it, with scales, that now our reserves are around 13 million. So it doesn't take very many expenditures to drop from 21 down to 13. The last thing is they see the average property price going up 10%. And they had anticipated last year that they would not have the revenues that they had in the county because of the deferment policy of natural resources. But they were fooled because only 33% of the extractive industry chose to go that way. So that was a windfall. We are striving to maintain and improve solid waste. One thing that is interesting that we cannot get cooperation from the tribal entities to meet with us. One group meets with us, the other group does not. So we're trying to forge a contractual, MOU where we will pay them more to do the job that we don't want to do on the tribal land of picking up the solid waste, because it comes back eventually to the landfill. So anyway, we've had 3 meetings with them, and it's really interesting to go to a meeting there where half the board shows up, and they're normally half an hour to 45 minutes late on the starting of their own meetings. It's very interesting. But that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Pronto?
Well, Your Honor, I haven't attended any meetings since our last meeting, since the meeting before our last meeting. Due to unfortunate flight delays, I wasn't able to make our last meeting, but I was able to watch parts of it thanks to our online presence. This Friday here at City Hall, we'll have the airport board meeting. That starts at 8 a.m. I'll be at that one, and we'll report next meeting. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that you attend those. Those usually don't work for my calendar, and I'm glad we have attendance at these meetings. All right, Mr. Butterfield, tell me what you've got.
Your Honor, I'll be very brief. I was going to mention two of the meetings that have already been mentioned tonight, so I'll skip that and just make reference to the budget packet that was distributed to you. We will have our work session next week and look forward to the opportunity to hear any comments or feedback that you have. I do encourage you to get in touch with me if you have questions about the budget. Obviously, the workbook is the opportunity for you to let us know if there are changes that should be made prior to the final adoption that's required by statute. Really want to highlight the staff that you have. They've worked very, very hard and are short-staffed right now, spread thin, but they're getting the job done and especially getting the budget done. So I just want to say thank you to our team for that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You all look exhausted.
Well, it is 9:15 too. All right. Well, I don't have a lot. I was just telling Captain Romero before our meeting that I was really glad that we had a proclamation on Public Works. This week is actually, though, National Peace Officers Week. Yesterday was the National Peace Officers Memorial Day. Correct? Correct. Good. And I'll try to get on top of it and make sure we have a proclamation or something next year. Nothing against Public Works. I wasn't saying that against Public Works, but I was just saying I was realizing the irony of the next week talking about Public Works, and we did a proclamation, and I felt bad that I didn't have one today for the Peace Officers Week. So I really appreciated the way that our community recognizes and shows their appreciation for our peace officers. We've had a lot of people that have come out and have just come up with a lot of different ways to show appreciation and support, and I think that has been great, and I really applaud that. I would encourage our community to do the same next week. Our peace officers are on duty 24/7. They have to deal with a lot of difficult things. They have to deal with a lot of dirty things, and much like them, our Public Works Department is on duty whenever we need them. They're there willing to clean up the messes we can't or don't want to clean up. So there's a lot in common, I think, between the two of them. And I would encourage folks, just the same as we've come out in force, I think, for our peace officers, that we try to make more of an effort next week to come out in force in support of our Public Works Department, because they've got a dirty job often. And so I really appreciate them. So I guess that's meant to be recognition for both of our departments, the two biggest departments, honestly, that we have in the city, Public Works and our Police Department, and what they're willing to do for our community and just making it so that it exists. So thank you very much. The next thing is that we've been having some meetings discussing outdoor recreation grants. This was discussed a little bit. There's been some ARPA funding that's opened up. We've had a couple of meetings discussing how we want to be going about as a community and what we'd be interested in and what we can do to improve the community with those outdoor recreation grants. Some of them might include some of what we've been talking about today in terms of building trails, making them look better, being able to improve the Riverwalk. Any of those things could be, or the rendezvous site. Any of those things could be really good opportunities for those grants, and there's been some discussion in that regard, and we'll continue to have that discussion as we go forward. It's not even open yet, but we're trying to make sure that we're open to opportunities when the discussion is started so that we're not getting caught unawares and having to quickly make a grant application. We've also had a little bit of a de facto homeless task force that we've been meeting, and it started with a small group because the biggest question we've had to start with has been, what are the assets that we have in Riverton currently to assist our homeless population? And some of what spurred the discussion was the recent, not so recent, I guess, the November 7th death of Richard Lone Bear in the city, who died partially due to hypothermia, partially due to alcohol intoxication, but completely due to being outside and not having a place to go. And so we were discussing that a little bit. What assets do we have that would be available to someone like that that's intoxicated and cold? And after some discussion over the last couple of weeks, we don't have any. That's just the reality. Like it or not, that the Eagles Hope will not allow people in when they have a positive BAC. Part of that's due to their grant funding and their other requirements, and I think to safety concerns. The detox center does social detox, but does not do medical detox. Won't take someone who is in that sort of a situation unless they're basically agreeing that they want to be getting treatment and better their life. And so we've got a population that's not being served and can be exposed to the elements. There's a lot of people that have a lot of thoughts about that and what the solution is or isn't to that, but we've had some early discussions and trying to figure out what do we do about that. And so that's been some of the discussion so far, and we'll continue that discussion going forward. But I really appreciate, none of this is meant to be disparaging the programs that we have. I think the programs that we have are really good in the sense that they're trying to solve the problem long-term. That's really what Eagles Hope is all about. That's really what the Center of Hope is all about. But sometimes, for some people, the long-term solution isn't going to make it so that they're going to be able to survive a cold night. Our police department is very aware of these individuals, often will be out assisting. Heck, we've had officers who will take them to Wind River Cares, provide anything that they can, but the reality is these are our people, and they are at high risk of exposure to the elements, and we want to talk about it. So that's what we've been doing.
Your Honor, I hate to interrupt your talk, but there are at least 5 or 6 vacant halls in November at that time of night that are heated. The Oddfellows above the lumber yard. On Broadway, there's the old Elks Club, or not Elks, Moose.
Eagles.
There's the old power plant up on West Main. There's the high school building.
For now.
We're talking November 7th.
I agree.
Okay. There are the B&N Motel, which is being converted. All of those were available. Plus, there are 3 or 4 homes adjacent north of Wells Fargo that the tribe owns that are boarded up. Now, those are just a poor man's rambling, and to say we don't have assets.
That's true, and I mean, I agree. You're talking about infrastructure. You're talking about actual buildings. Yes, you're talking
that are vacant.
About, that's true, and
That are
I guess
vacant.
when you're thinking as a property owner, though, that's a question for the property owner. Do you want to have people coming to your building? And I agree with you, Councilman Larson. In terms of a set-aside location, we did not have that. We do not have that.
We don't.
And but in terms of the building space, yes. And so it's just how do you utilize that? And do we want to utilize that? How? So.
And if you do have it, how do you staff it?
Right.
How do you maintain it so that 2 a.m. somebody doesn't start a fire in the middle of your, anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's been some of the discussion. There was some discussion about setting up warming huts. There's been other things that have been discussed. And Wind River Cares has the space available. And we have taken people out there. The problem with it is that it's limited in terms of who can go there because it's run by the tribe, although I will say it's my understanding, Rick Brannon, who runs that, has said, I don't want to be turning people away, and I really appreciate that attitude. But it's also limited in the fact that, honestly, Some of these folks in that situation might not want to go all the way out to Wind River Cares to the old COVID camp. So there's a lot of things to be discussed, and we're just kind of at the surface right now, but just to, I guess, have folks aware there's been discussion and we're trying to figure out where we go from here. I mentioned before I had an opportunity to attend a swearing-in ceremony for a naturalization ceremony, I guess. I loved that opportunity, and I guess I would encourage anyone here to attend one. I don't know how regularly they have them, but it was in Casper at the federal courthouse, run by one of our federal judges. We had a lot of organizations who attended, who were very welcoming towards our new citizens, excited to have them there. You know, I go to a lot of Republican Party meetings, but I don't think I've seen anywhere else where I've been that unabashed patriotism and pride in country and just excitement for being an American citizen and what that means, and being excited about what that means. I think often we have people who get bogged down with the discouragement or the attitude that it's not just an absolutely amazing thing to be an American citizen, and that's your right to feel that way, and that's fine. But it was really good to see that excitement, and I was really glad to be there and very excited. We had one of our, at least I knew of one, I saw her there, one of our citizens who lives just down the road from me, who I didn't know was going to be there, but she was there and she was sworn in, and we got a picture together, and it was just great. There were probably some other Riverton citizens there that I didn't know. We were there for a friend of ours who lives in Lander. I have friends in Lander, and that's okay. But anyway, that was exciting. I was very glad.
Give their names.
Yeah. And then, of course, had the opportunity, speaking of Republican events, had the opportunity to go to the Derby dinner, I guess. Normally it's a Lincoln Day dinner. It was a lot of fun. We got to hear from the First Lady talking about her initiative in terms of hunger, and had an opportunity to go to get prime rib at the senior center, and that was a lot of fun. We had a band, and my wife and I danced. I stepped on her feet a couple of times. Somebody said they were going to get a picture and run it when I run for election again, and we'll see how that goes. Anyway, all right, well, that's it from me. I really appreciate everybody's time tonight, and I really appreciate the attention to the items that we had. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Councilwoman Salisbury with the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Councilwoman Borders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Adjourned at 9:27 p.m. Thank you.